Genesis 6 has a problem, not of interpretation, of arithmetic. The Watchers descended. They took wives. They fathered the Nephilim, giants whose violence, we're told, broke the world. The flood came, the giants died, and the text moves on. But the math doesn't close. If the sons of God took Nashimt close, if the sons of God took Nashim, women, plural from among human daughters, then the Nephilim were born from mothers. Those mothers had sisters. Those sisters had daughters. The Nephilim themselves, if they followed the same pattern as every other patriarchal line in Genesis, would have produced daughters of their own. Daughters who are never named, never counted, never killed, not forgotten, absent. That silence shouldn't exist. Every other line of descent in Genesis, cursed or blessed, faithful or corrupt, names its women eventually. Cain's line names Nama. The righteous line names wives by function, if not always by name. But the Nephilim line, it ends with the sons. Cleanly, completely. The omission is so precise it has edges. And what sits behind those edges is exactly what every tradition that ever touched this story, canonical and forbidden alike, seems to have worked, in some cases frantically, either to preserve or to erase. Not both. The two impulses don't always line up the way we'd expect. Genesis 6:4 gives us the sons. It names the Nephilim. It records their reputation. Gibberim, mighty ones, men of renown. It never names a daughter. Not one. The text that catalogs heroes, lineages, and generations across hundreds of verses goes completely silent on the female offspring of the most catastrophic union in human history. The Bible doesn't say they didn't exist, but it doesn't say they died in infancy. It doesn't say the flood erased them before they could be recorded. It says nothing, and that silence is too deliberate to be accidental. This is not an argument from absence in the ordinary sense, the kind scholars dismiss with a wave. This is a structured absence. Genesis tracks the sons of Shem, Ham, and Japheth by name, nation, and territory in chapter 10. It records the daughters of Zelophehad in Numbers 27:1 because their inheritance mattered. When the Bible wants daughters on the record, it puts them there. It has done it before. It knows how. The daughters of the Nephilim are not on the record, which raises a question that the apocryphal texts, the ones removed from the canon before most people alive today were ever taught to read, answer with an unsettling specificity, not vaguely, not symbolically, with names. The canonical Bible gives you silence. The texts they removed give you names. The Book of Enoch doesn't skip the daughters. It describes the Watchers taking wives with a specificity that reads less like mythology and more like a legal deposition, detailing covenants, numbers, even the specific mountain where the pact was sealed. The Book of Jubilees goes further, tracking what happened to the children of those unions across generations, not just the sons, which is the part most readers miss. And the Dead Sea Scrolls, discovered in sealed caves, hidden from institutional hands for 2,000 years, contain fragments where the offspring of the Nephilim are described in terms that distinguish bloodlines, not just body size. 3 suppressed sources. 3, and all saying the same thing the canonical text refuses to say. Is this coincidence? It's a legitimate question that deserves a direct answer. Texts don't converge on a detail they all invented. Scribes working centuries apart, in different languages, preserving different traditions, they don't accidentally agree on something the official record chose to erase. They agree because they were copying something older, something that knew exactly what the daughters became. And here is the problem, and it's a real one, because every civilization that touched this story left the same portrait of a woman who was never supposed to survive. The Sumerian tablets don't describe daughters of giants in passing. They describe them by function. Lilitu, the female offspring of divine human unions in Mesopotamian cosmology, weren't categorized as monsters or casualties. They were cataloged as a class, given attributes, given territory. The tablets describe what they could do, where they operated, what made them distinct from both their fathers and their mothers. That's not mythology. That's taxonomy. And Sumer isn't alone in this. The Vedic tradition records apsaras, born from unions between celestial beings and mortal women, female entities of hybrid origin whose nature couldn't be fully classified as human or divine. Greek mythology names the daughters of titans and mortals across multiple generations, tracking their lineages with the same obsessive precision the Hebrew scribes applied to male bloodlines, and conspicuously, almost pointedly, abandoned when the female line appeared. 3 civilizations, no contact, the same women. What's remarkable isn't the parallel itself, it's what each tradition preserves that the others don't. And what Sumer specifically records about the Lilitu is something Genesis 6 had every reason to omit, something the text seems to have decided wasn't its problem to explain. Because what they survived into, that question, the text simply wasn't willing to answer. Here is what the silence was protecting. Not the Nephilim, not their violence, not even the corruption that forced a flood to reset the world. The silence was protecting the daughters. Specifically, what happened to them after the flood that supposedly ended everything. The Book of Enoch doesn't just describe the Watcher's transgression, it describes the ruach of their offspring, the spirits that persisted when the bodies were destroyed. Giants died. Their spirits did not. And the text draws a line the canonical Bible refuses to draw. The spirits of the male Nephilim became what we call demons, roaming, corrupting, possessing. But the text is forensically precise about what it does not fold into that category. The daughters aren't in the list. That omission has a shape. It has edges. The Sumerian Lilitu, the Greek Lamii, the Hebrew Lilit. None of them are categorized with roaming male spirits. They carry different attributes, different operations, different territories. Same pattern. 3 separate cosmologies. No contact between them, arriving at the same distinction. Which means if the male Nephilim spirits have a fate, the Bible names, and it does name it, the female ones have a fate the Bible chose not to name. And something that isn't named doesn't disappear. It just stops being tracked. We live in days that an unusual number of serious scholars, not fringe voices, not internet theorists, but credentialed historians and theologians, have begun comparing to what Genesis 6 describes as the condition of the world before the flood, not metaphorically, structurally. The specific markers Noah's generation carried weren't moral failures alone. They were the result of something that had entered the human bloodline and refused to leave. The Book of Enoch names this with a precision that should disturb you. The ruach of the Nephilim daughters didn't dissolve with their bodies. It persisted. It adapted. It found new vessels, or something close enough to vessels that the distinction may not matter. And here is the objection every serious reader raises at this point. It's a legitimate one. If these spirits continued, why does the post-flood world look so human? The answer the texts give is consistent across every tradition that preserved this account. They didn't stop the world from looking human. They changed what moved inside it. The daughters were never the catastrophe. They were the transmission mechanism, which means the flood didn't end the problem the Watcher started. It relocated it. And if that's true, if the mechanism survived, then the question of where it went next is not ancient history. It's current events. If you've made it this far, you already know the question isn't going away. Not because it's unsettling, though it is, because it's structural. The silence in Genesis 6 isn't the silence of things forgotten. It's the silence of things managed. And once you see the architecture of that management, you can't unsee it. Here is the question I want you to sit with. If the daughters of the Nephilim became what the Book of Enoch, the Mesopotamian tablets, and the traditions of 3 unconnected civilizations all describe, entities that didn't die with the flood, but persisted in a different form, then the world you're navigating right now was shaped by something that was never supposed to survive it. That thought either means nothing to you, or it changes everything about how you read the present. There is no middle ground. The next video goes deeper into what the Watchers were specifically sent to teach, and why that knowledge, above everything else, may have been the very thing the flood was meant to erase. Subscribe, not because you enjoy the content, because you're beginning to suspect the version of history you were handed was never the complete one. And you're right.